Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm the 100 Proof News Hound here presenting the 100 Years and More show. And today we're going way back beyond 100 years. We're going to go back, we're going to go back to the origins of cricket in America and the origin of baseball in America. And we're going to compare the two. And I got a hypothesis that there's one year, that year being 1855, that was crucial in allowing baseball to become the national pastime. Up until that time, could have gone either way, but it didn't after 1855, and I'll show you why here right now. Before we even get started, one thing you got to realize is that in a society, in order for there to be recreational activities like this, you need two things. You got to have people who got time, and you got to have people who got some money. Before about 1820, nobody had much time and nobody had much money. If you were involved in industrial activities before then, you were probably working a 14-hour day and you're not making anything. If you're involved in farming, which most people were, you had time, but again, not much money, and you were not urbanized. You had to be in the city in order to have get 22 guys together and play cricket. So the combination seems to come together in that 1820, 1830 period. And let's go through the material and we'll show you how. Before this period of time, the only guys that got any money and got the time would be aristocratic. George Washington had the time and money if he wanted to be a baseball player, but not many other guys were. So let's go all the way back to the first mention of cricket in America. The Pennsylvania Gazette, July 16th, 1730. And look at who's playing the game. Yesterday morning, the Duke of Richmond and the Earl of Albemarle and about 12 more diverted themselves at cricket in Hyde Park. Next week, they are to play for a match for 100 guineas. 100 pounds, 100 guineas is a little more than 100 pounds. 100 guineas is like a fortune. This is like, $1 million, it may as well be. They're playing high stakes cricket because they got the time and they got the money. The first time it's mentioned in an American paper, a game in the United States, well, not even in the United States at that time because it's July 25th, 1754, the Maryland Gazette in Annapolis, Maryland. Who's playing here? Well, we hear there's to be a great cricket match for a good sum played on Saturday next near Mr. Aaron Rawlings Spring between 11 young men of this city and the same number of Prince George's County. So the game apparently got played because last week, again back in the Maryland Gazette, last week a cricket match was played in Mr. Murdoch's old field in Prince George's County. Oh, this must have been the return game because they've reversed. Between 11 of that county and 11 South River Gentlemen, and that the Prince Georgians were beat. The first sporting result in an American newspaper concerning cricket or baseball. Now, cricket developed along the lines of golf in that it was played at private clubs. It was never a game of the people. It was played at private clubs. People would form a club of 30 to 40 fellows. You needed at least 22 to play the game. And this is a typical announcement here in the Evening Post of April 5th, 1809. The members of the New York Cricket Club are requested to meet on business of importance at 7 o'clock on Monday evening next at Baker's Porterhouse in Wall Street. They always say in Wall Street. It's an English kind of thing. No one says on. We would not say he's on. Well, anyways, in Wall Street. So they're meeting at a bar. They're going to vote on some rules. They're going to discuss matters of importance. And it's all going to be done amongst gentlemen. Now, cricket maintains that kind of pace, and you will see those kind of ads continuously for the 2 or 3 cricket clubs in New York City up until 1850. In 1850, we get the first announcement of cricket being played in the hinterlands. Cincinnati Enquirer, May 26, 1850. Cricket, a match will be played between 11 members of the Queen City and 11 members of the Sheffield clubs on Monday the 17th. So there we are. Oh, stumps to be pitched at 9 o'clock a.m. Cricket, you ever watch cricket? Cricket goes on for like 5 days. It's a sport I've watched it many times. I understand 90% of the rules. It's the other 10% that just baffle me. And the enthusiasm, I guess it's the same as baseball. When we were in India, India was hosting the World Championship. I'm sure they have a name for it. And we were at the bar at the Imperial Hotel. And the bartender for 3 hours tried to explain it to us. Maybe if we hadn't been drinking, we would have figured out all the rules. But we could figure out most of them. And so I can enjoy it on TV, but that's about it. Now, it was even getting played down in Charleston, South Carolina, on the Charleston Mercury of Wednesday, May 29th, 1850. Islington Cricket Club. A match is going to take place at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Members be punctual in attendance. That was the advert in the Charleston newspaper. And they're playing it up in Boston here. Okay, September 26th, 1850, cricket match. A grand trial of skill between the New England and the New York cricket clubs commences today at Cambridge Crossing, so-called between Roxbury and Cambridge, and will be continued during the remainder of the week. That's that thing. The game's going to go on for 5 days. Who can participate? This is interesting. It's reported that the players are unusually scientific. Consequently, it is expected the scene will be highly interesting to lovers of rare sports in this line. There's a hint there, eh? It's a rare sport. It's not one that everyone sees played all the time. They got it in the newspaper. They're inviting it to come out. But it's a little bit odd, as it has remained for North Americans ever since. But the game is popular. It's being played in the hinterlands, Cincinnati Enquirer. There's a game, and this is something that baseball took another 10 years to do. Games between cities, especially games between cities that are a couple hundred miles apart, which in the 1850s is a big deal. A cricket match was played today between Pittsburgh and Cincinnati cricket clubs. Suffice it to say, the Iron City Boys beat the Queen City Boys out and out in this game. So, we have an intercity rivalry between Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. And not only that, it was replayed the next year, Wednesday, May 7th, 1851, Pittsburgh Post. We're informed that the return match between 11 of Pittsburgh and the 11 of Cincinnati for $100 will be played in Pittsburgh in the middle of next week. We have no doubt that there are a great many of our citizens who have not seen this ancient game played and suppose it to be a boyish game. We can inform them it is anything but, for it requires a great deal of practice and skill before a man can take part in it. Again, notice the terminology here. It's an ancient game. It's recognized its oldness, but also its strangeness to American eyes, even though it seems to be popular. Now, they always play up the health aspects of baseball and cricket when you're reading about it here. In this article, it says, now, this is a beneficial amusement, and no city needs it more than Pittsburgh, for we have a great many clerks, tailors, shoemakers, and various others who would do well to turn their attention to this game as exercise and patronize it with all their power as an antidote for ill health. Well, I guess it is that. Every game I've seen, guys are running around they're running around getting healthy. Now, we've got intercity games continuing, as I said, between Boston and New York. This is July 30th, 1851. The match between the St. George's, and that's one of the big New York clubs at the time, and New England cricket clubs was commenced yesterday at the Red House. The Red House is a cricket/baseball field in Harlem at the time. Each party had an innings, and the game will probably be terminated today. But they can't tell you it's going to be terminated today. God knows how long it's actually going to go on for. Now, 1854, we're right before that time that I'm saying is so important. And we've got a game here. We have a match between the New York club and the St. George's club. The decisive match between them was commenced yesterday on the New York Cricket Club Hoboken grounds. With respect to spectator participation, it's noted, and this is the first time we see this in relation to a cricket match, the attendance was select and seemed to comprise a number of admirers of the sport, the weather pleasantly cool for such exercise. Not noting that it was standing room only or the crowds were humongous. The attendance was select, which goes, I think, hand in hand with the elitist nature of the sport and the way it's being played and practiced at that time. You've even got international matches, which don't come up in baseball for 50 years. In June 28, 1854, the Evening Post of Cleveland notes, United States versus Canada. The return game of the great national cricket match, United States versus Canada, is fixed to take place at Toronto on Wednesday and Thursday, because it can never just be over in a day. The players have not yet been chosen. It looks like they're going to choose them between a combination of the best players from the New York club and the St. George's club. It notes, however, that the last match played in New York City last season, the Canadian 11 met with a significant defeat. So Canada went down to the American clubs in 1853. Now, the game is even being played in as far west, this is 1854, as Milwaukee. Milwaukee's actually playing, it's funny, the Milwaukee club is playing the New Lisbon club. Now, New Lisbon is a little town of Eden now, it only has 2,000 people, like 100 miles west of Milwaukee. The only guy that's famous that came out of there, I think, is Mark Andreessen. You know, the guy with Netscape Navigator and all that stuff, the tech billionaire, he's from there. But it's noted here in 1854 that a well-contested cricket match was played in this city on the 4th instant between the Lisbon and Milwaukee clubs. The players assembled on the field about 9:30 in the morning, but it was so warm that they were in no great hurry to begin the game. It was 10:30 before the first wickets were pitched. I guess that's cricket terminology. Very gentlemanly. So that's what we're going to take. We're going to take the history of cricket up to that point. And at that point in time, look what we've got. We've got intercity matches. We've got international matches. We've got active participation, but we don't seem to have a lot of public enthusiasm. But the game at its level is being played across America and being played internationally. Now, in looking this up, this is the only, I like to put in little asides in the middle of our little talks here. This is an aside. This came up. You ever watched a sitcom? If you're watching Barney Miller and somebody got arrested, they'd be sent down to the Tombs. That's the jail in New York City. Do you know why it's called the Tombs? Well, it's not because they're embalming you or anything like that. It's called the Tombs because the original building that was built like in 1840, that was the original major jail, the first big jail they built in New York, was built in the style, it was Egyptian revival. It looked like an Egyptian temple. Why do they do a building of that quality to house prisoners? I have no idea. And it stayed until 1900 or so. It's been torn down. Hopefully there's a picture of it right now, showing right now on your screen. But it was an amazing building. And this is an amazing, crazy thing. This was the New York Daily Herald, Monday, October 21, 1839. Its headline is "The Statistics of the Egyptian Tombs." We recommend the following to the especial attention of the Board of Aldermen, whether Whig or loco-focused. I had to look that up too. That's like know-nothing guys. They're running up the elections of 1840. You've got know-nothing candidates and that sort of thing. Loco-focused is a local version of that. This is divided by race, so we're not trying to be racial, and the race stuff doesn't even have much effect on what we're talking about because they get the stats received during the week. So these are the guys, inmates coming. 105 white men, 40 white women. Seems an awful lot of women. I wonder if it's got to all be hookers or something, because women traditionally make up less than 10% of the prison population. Women just aren't. They just don't go around committing heinous crimes usually. So they have 40 women and 100 men. Then they had 37 black men, 37 black women. And then they give the rates for how many people are discharged, how many got out. Okay. And then it has the line. And I'm not making this up. Somebody got eaten by rats, and he became a statistic on the Egyptian tombs. Eaten up by the rats. Well, anyways, now we're on to baseball. The first mention of baseball in an American newspaper happens, the United States Gazette of Philadelphia, March 28, 1826. Messrs. William Sullivan and John Coffin have petitioned the councils of Boston for the use of a piece of public ground for 2 years, for the establishment of a gymnastics school. So somebody wants to start a gymnastics school and they want to use public property. It's interesting what the newspaper then says next. A measure of doubtful propriety we apprehend. They're not on board. They don't like it. If a boy wants to play, let him play, but do not spoil the fun by dictating the modus operandi. A game of baseball or football is worth a dozen gymnasiums, where the eye of surveillance is to chock the flow of animal spirits. So they think they're the exact opposite. A modern person thinks that their kid has to have 15 adults supervising every activity, making it as perfectly safe as possible. And here in 1826, they're saying, get rid of the adults. Let the kid run wild. Let his animal spirits flow in a game of baseball. So there's our first mention here. The second mention of baseball doesn't happen in an article about baseball or about sports at all. It comes in a short story that's contained in this is a great name, the Dundalf Republican and Canal and Railroad Intelligencer of Dundas, Pennsylvania, May 21, 1829. Here's what it says. Then comes a sunburst gypsy of 6, beginning to grow tall and thin, and to find the cares of the world gathering about her. Her longing eyes fixed on a game of baseball at the corner of the green. So in 1829, baseball is common enough that it can be referred to without any explanation as being an activity or sport that's being played on the village green. So again, this is a thing. Look, baseball is being played out there in the middle of town by common folk. It's not being played in a private club. Now there will be private clubs, but that's not where this game comes from. Now, in 1839, which is in fact the next reference to baseball, again, it's not done with respect to sport. It's done, well, it's become part of the scenery. Here's why I say that. Hail month that bringeth the bluebird to our yards, the steamboats and canal boats to our ports. Hail season for shooting pigeons, ducks, and woodcock. Hail season of baseball and wicket. So we've got part of the spring ritual is to play both baseball and cricket, apparently. The first clubs along the lines of the cricket clubs appear in New York in 1845. New York Daily Herald, October 21. The New York Baseball Club will play a match of baseball against the Brooklyn Club tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock at the Elysian Fields in Hoboken. So that implies that they've been around for a year or two, and I think the club may have actually been formed in 1843. But 1845 is the first time they hit the paper. Then the Brooklyn Eagle says on October 21, 1845, a great match at baseball. This afternoon at 2 o'clock, the New York Baseball Club will play a match with the Brooklyn Club at the Elysian Fields. The interest attached to this match will attract large numbers from this and the neighboring city. This is the first reference with respect to attendance. And unlike the other ones, the cricket match, which had a select crew coming out, they are expecting to have large numbers in attendance. On October 25th, 1845, those games get written up in the first box score ever to be seen in a stadium, and hopefully we have a picture of that on the screen in front of you. Baseball play. The subjoined is the result of the return match between the New York Baseball Club and the Brooklyn Players, which came off on the grounds of the Brooklyn Star Cricket Club yesterday. Messrs. Johnson, Wheaton, and Van Nostrom were the umpires. And what it lists is all of the outs and all of the runs. And the score was 37-19. But what's interesting is right after they played the baseball game, they played a shortened version of a cricket game there, and they write that up as well. So cricket, it's 1845, and cricket and baseball are running neck and neck, as it were. But like I said, cricket's going international, and certainly it's going intercity, and baseball hasn't got there yet. Now, November 11th, 1845, in the New York Daily Herald, the New York Baseball Club, the second anniversary of this club came off yesterday on the ground in the Elysian Fields. The game was as follows, and it has a box score, but it shows you that it's 2 years, so it's 1845, so the club was established in 1843. And I like this. After the match, the parties took dinner at Mr. McCarty's Hoboken as a wind-up to the season. The club were honored by the presence from the Union Star Cricket Club, the Knickerbocker Club, which is General Athletic Club, and other gentlemen of note. So there we are. They're sneaking in some gentlemen of note, even in a baseball club. Now, on Monday, July 6, 1846, it was announced, Brooklyn City Baseball Club. A number of most respectable young men have recently organized themselves in the club for the purpose of participating in the healthy and athletic sport of baseball. From the character of its members, this will be the crack club of the county. A meeting of the club will be held tomorrow at the National House for the adoption of bylaws and completion of its organization. So they're pitching it, even though I'm telling you that it's coming up from below, like it's a populist game. They are still trying. There's always a group of people that want to make something exclusionary, and they're starting their own club again. But that's part of the growth of the sport here. Now we have a club in Brooklyn, not just in Manhattan. And finally, in 1848, we get evidence that it's penetrated into the heartland of America here. The Weekly Shelby News in Shelbyville, Kentucky, Wednesday, December 27th, 1848. The game of baseball last Saturday between the Simpsonville Club and the Shelbyville Juniors on the grounds of the latter resulted in victory for the former by a score of 15-13. So we've got our first result of a game played in the hinterlands, as it were. Next article is an odd little thing. Remember that I said that they always like to stress the health aspects of sport. Now here's the ultimate health aspect. They're in the Pennsylvania Insane Asylum, and they note that the outdoor amusements for the patrons consist of the game of quoits and baseball. And they go on about the health aspects of that and of other activities. They have sewing parties and a bunch of other things. But baseball is included in the curriculum at the Insane Asylum by 1849. By 1851, well, this shows you, I think this article here in the New York Tribune, December 29, 1851, really gives you a sense of how baseball has become part of the fabric of America by that time. On Christmas Day, and that's the other thing, they play baseball way into the year here, like late. You'll notice from the dates of the games, a lot of them are in November. This one you're going to see they're playing at Christmas. On Christmas Day, the drivers, agents, and other employees of the various express companies in the city had a turnout entirely in character. They appeared in processions with 4 horses and 9 tandem teams. In all, 13 wagons and 34 horses. There were between 75 and 80 men in the company, mostly from the procession at Broadway was picturesque and attracted great attention. In pursuance of an invitation, the whole party called upon Richard Vert in Beach Street. They then went to the residence of Mr. Smith in Franklin Street, and thence to the Red House at Harlem. Again, remember the Red House in Harlem is the cricket / baseball field, where the whole party had a good old-fashioned game of baseball. baseball. And they capped it off with dinner back at Mr. Smith. But it's now, and this is 1851, it's now the good old-fashioned game of baseball. It's part of the fabric. It's familiar to everybody. You know what's funny? When I was a kid, and by a kid, I mean up maybe until I was 30, everyone thought that Abner Doubleday, the general from Gettysburg, had invented baseball in 1839. It was just out there. That's just what it was. Everyone just, Cooperstown, the Hall of Fame had stuff about that. But the truth is out there. It's in the documents. It's not, Abner Doubleday's not, aside from me just mentioning right now, that's the only time he's going to get mentioned. He's got nothing to do with baseball whatsoever that I've been able to determine. Yet his name was out there first and foremost with respect to the development of baseball. But he didn't. So here we are. Back we go. That was one of my rants. That's a Doubleday rant. Anyways, on November 3rd, 1854, the New York Daily Herald has the first in-print comparison between the two games that I've been able to discover here. I'll quote from this thing. The game of baseball bids fair soon to be as popular as the favorite game of cricket. So at this point, remember, it's 1854, they're saying cricket is more popular. But right glad we are to see these healthful and manly exercises so frequently indulged in. Many baseball clubs have been recently organized, and below we give the score of two games which were played during the past week. The first was a match played in the grounds of the Eagle Ball Club at Hoboken, and the next was at Gotham. So what we've got here, they're comparing baseball to cricket, and they're saying that at this point in time, cricket has the edge. It's close. I'll give them that much. It's close. Now, New York Times, December 19th, 1854. This is an article talking about the status of baseball in New York City. There are now in this city 3 regularly organized clubs who meet twice in each week for about 8 months of the year for exercise in the good old-fashioned American game of baseball. They're the Knickerbockers, the Eagles, and the Gothams. These clubs are comprised of residents of the city of various professions, each numbering about 30 members, and their affairs are conducted in such a manner as to enable all persons who can give the necessary time for the purpose to enjoy all the advantages of the game. Again, remember, they're professional guys and they got to have time, and they're recognizing that in the article here. The season for play closed about the middle of November, and on Friday evening, the 3 clubs partook in their annual dinner at Fijux's, Fijux', in Barclay Street. So they had a banquet. They had a blowout at the end of the season. Now we're talking. About 45 members were present and enjoyed themselves in a manner that indicated that ball playing does not seriously diminish the appetite for either physical or intellectual enjoyment. It's starting to become something. This is not, at no point in the history of cricket that we've gone over has there been any hint at celebration. You're going to see more of that in the next few articles. New York Times in May 5th, 1855 noted a friendly match was played yesterday at the Elysian Fields. The play was good on both sides and they seemed pretty equally matched. There are now 5 clubs. Remember there were 3. There are now 5 clubs in good condition, and their practice days are followed. They list the practice days for the Gotham, the Knickerbockers, the Eagle, the Empire, and the Excelsior in Brooklyn. I'd love to have played for the Excelsior. Wouldn't that be great? That's a word never gets used anymore. But up until like the 1930s, I think the Three Stooges had an Excelsior. They had an Excelsior skit. Anyways, I like the word Excelsior. In the Buffalo Courier Express of May 9th, 1855, they run a little blurb. Baseball, there are 5 regularly organized and permanent clubs in the city of New York formed for the purpose of playing the above game so well known to young America. Again, it's the inclusion of this article is just because it again emphasizes that this is a downward up movement, not an upward down movement, and it's a game that's being played on the playgrounds, and we're going to see in the schools across America by this point in time. And it's giving, you'll see, it's giving it a little more oomph than the proponents of cricket would be able to provide. There was a game between Eagles and the Empire clubs. This match was played yesterday at Hoboken in June 16, 1855. This is the golden year. And resulted in a win for the Empire Club. The attendance of spectators was very large. Among them, several ladies, which added much to the scene. So now we've got large attendance, including women. And the inclusion of women in an activity like this is always crucial, because if you can get your girlfriend or wife on board, it opens up all the opportunity in the world for you to indulge in your passion even more if the wife or girlfriends are on board. And we're getting that sense now in the world of baseball. Brooklyn Evening Star on July 26, 1855. Baseball, this truly healthy and manly exercise, is becoming a favorite amusement among our young men. And for those who are confined to the office or the desk, it has all the advantages of the gymnasium, together with the exciting interest of the game itself. Clubs have been formed in all the suburbs of New York, as well as the city proper. And then the article is a nice article saying what's going on in each of the different areas. But it concludes with, we shall give the rules and regulations of the various clubs as soon as we can obtain the requisite information. They're out there, the people want to know the rules of the game, they want to know the rules of the clubs, they want to know how they can participate, and the Brooklyn Evening Star is going to help them out that way. Again, nothing like that has appeared yet along those lines with respect to cricket. Baseball is becoming very popular. It's noted on August 22nd, 1855, that the Pioneer and Excelsior baseball clubs of Jersey City played the return match yesterday upon the field between Jersey and Hoboken. An omnibus line ran from the Jersey City ferry to the grounds during the play. So they set up buses. Horse-powered buses at that point, but buses to bring the fans, who must have been a lot. You don't do that if you're going to have 50 people there, to bring the fans to watch the game. A large number of spectators were present during the play. We've got not just people participating, and that's the key. In cricket, there was grand participation, including participation in clubs all across the country, but there was no groundswell of people who want to just watch the game. We're getting that in baseball. Here's a Canadian newspaper, Semi-Weekly Spectator, Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And the Hamilton Spectator, I think, is still in operation here. Okay, here we go. It's September 12th, 1855. What do they have to say about baseball? Every day, almost, the green bowers of Hoboken are surrounded with great crowds of the fancy attracted by matches of baseball and cricket. So they're playing baseball and they're playing cricket. Cricket has not become an American game yet. The cricket clubs are mostly composed of Englishmen. Baseball is quite national. The boys learn it at school. But the baseball clubs are men of fine physical development, practical and skillful players. This is the first comment on how they looked when they're playing the games. They dress in flannel tights, sandals and gloves, colored all over in Harlequin style. This must have looked spectacular. You know, Harlequin style. It's checked, but in diamond shapes and triangles. Now, go to a deck of cards and pull out the Joker. 99% of the time, that Joker, his costume is in Harlequin style. That's how the baseball uniforms were, and I've seen pictures of these from the 1870s. If a team adopted that color pattern today, man, the sharpest team in the league. Anyways, so that's how they're dressing in 1855. But here we are. It's the last month of 1855 that's so crucial. New York Daily Herald. The baseball clubs. The season for playing is now over, and the baseball clubs, in order to preserve an organization, have formed a central body composed of delegates from the respective clubs. They're setting up a league. It's the first time there's been a league in anything, in any sport in America. There's a natural compunction to do these kinds of things. You want to organize things, but they're organizing it into a league, and a league will mean statistics, and that's where it's all coming from, right here in 1855. A meeting was held at the Gotham in the Bowery last Friday evening, at which, Mr. Van Cott of the Gotham was elected president. Another meeting will be held next Friday evening, when it is understood delegates from all the respective clubs of New York and vicinity will be present. It is under contemplation of a grand festival and ball, to which none but the baseball players and their lady friends will be admitted. Now you're really cooking. Now you're bringing in the girlfriend. You're going to have a blowout, and their girlfriends. Did they have it? Yes, they did. Here we are, New York Daily Herald, December 30th. The first annual ball and supper of the Associated Baseball Clubs will take place at Niblo's Saloon, January 23rd, 1856. I wish I could go to Niblo's Saloon. Sounds like it would have been a blast. Tickets admitting a gentleman and two ladies are $5. First of all, I don't understand the two-lady thing, but $5, that's like $160, $150, that's $50 a head. And then they tell you where you can go buy your tickets. Now, the ball went ahead, and here's what the New York Tribune had to say. Ball of the baseball clubs. The first ball of the baseball clubs came off at Niblo's on Wednesday night and proved a very satisfactory entertainment. About 200 couples attended and joined in the festivities. 200 couples. So 400 people showed up at $50 a head to participate in the baseball ball. It's here. It's established. It's a real thing. Baseball is now a real thing. It's not just something that a few oddballs are playing with across the river, which is what they were doing over in Hoboken. It's here. It's in town. It's big. It's a big deal. And once you gotta have an entity to sell them the equipment. And here's the first ad for baseball equipment that we have in an American newspaper. It's in the Times, March 17th, 1860. Baseball opening of the season. H. Clay Steer, booksellers and stationers. That's what they did before. All new publications, select novels, blah, blah, blah. But then, baseballs, bats, baseball books, bases. in great variety and all at moderate prices. Depot for all materials of the game of baseball. And that's 1865. So we've got companies out there selling the baseball equipment to all the people that are participating. We've got a league in New York City, and we've had the ball, and we've got the upcoming season. But here we go by 1860. Here's how established it is 5 years later. The Sunday Mercury will contain a full report of the annual meeting of the National Association of Baseball Players. So now it's gone national. It's not just a local thing, it's gone national. All the new rules and regulations for playing the national American game of baseball, together with a host of other matters interesting to ball players and to citizens generally, will be discussed. So now we've got a national organization. So you got your local league, and now you've got a governing body that's regulating the rules of baseball throughout the country. And that's reflected in an article of July 6, 1860 in the Charleston Mercury. Baseball is now the established national game. Last week, there were no less than 12 great pitched matches of baseball in New York City. That is about the average number per week. The members are mostly fine young men in good business who practice this excellent pastime for their health. This might explain baseball versus cricket in the United States more than anything that I was able to find. There are a few English clubs in this city who still devote themselves to their lumbering cricket, but the fast Yankees prefer the dashing, brilliant, and quickly won baseball. The two games well illustrate the difference in the character of the two nations. And I think that says it. You're playing a baseball game in under 2 hours. It's over. I mean, at that time, I'm sure major league games in the 1920s were all an hour and 45, an hour and 50 minutes. Cricket's going on for 5 days. Anyways, even shortened cricket games go on. It's not a game that suits the American personality. Now, by July 1860, the Hartford Courant notes that on the 4th of July, the Amherst College Baseball Club beat the club of Williams College 70-39. Well, that was a pitcher's duel, but it's the first recorded intercollegiate baseball game. So now we have college teams playing baseball as early as 1860. We had the league, the local league, then we had the national organization, and now the Portland Press of Portland, Maine, in December 26, 1864, in the middle of the Civil War, notes, a national baseball convention was held in New York last week, and the fly game was made the rule for next season. Okay, the fly game. That was one of the changes from the original rules of baseball. If you caught the ball in the air, the man was out. But they had a rule that if you caught it on one bounce in fair play, he was also out. That rule was done away with, and so that if you got on one bounce, you had to put the man out at first. So they adopted the modern rule of baseball back then in 1864. So we know that throughout the Civil War, baseball is played predominantly in the Union Army camps. And you realize there couldn't possibly be a better place for baseball to be played, in that the Civil War would have a campaigning season. They'd be actively getting themselves shot and killed a couple months of the year. They might if you're unfortunate enough to be in the Army of the Potomac, you might be involved in 2 or 3 battles in a year. The rest of the time was just downtime. You're supposed to be drilling and doing other military kind of things, but there is a lot of time for, and I'm sure one of the most productive ways that you could goof off in the Army in 1863 would be an organized baseball game. I mentioned that you would, if you were unfortunate enough to be in the Army, if you were actually one of Butler's guys in New Orleans or one of Burnside's guys up on the James River, you could go the whole darn war and never fight a battle. Basically, you were in training camp for 5 years. So that, the Civil War, it looks like it did quite a lot to help baseball throughout the country. That is never more evident than what happens immediately following the war. Washington, D.C., August 28th, 1865. So the war has just ended. As a matter of fact, I think they've just had the parades up Pennsylvania Avenue. So what else are you going to have? You're going to have a baseball tournament. The Cleveland Leader reports on the ball game in Washington. A baseball tournament was inaugurated here today by a grand match between the Athletes of Philadelphia, and note even back then, 1865, and they're the Philadelphia Athletics, the same thing they would be in 1950. And they're playing the national champions of this city. At least 10,000 persons witnessed the exciting performances, including a large number of ladies and distinguished personages. We got 10,000 people showing up to a baseball game in Washington, D.C. in 1865. The Athletes were victorious. The score was 87-12. Crushed them like bugs. And they were good sports, too. They won many friends here by their gentlemanly conduct. 10,000 people at a ball game. Cricket is done by this point in time. Cricket will maintain its position as a club-level game throughout the 18th century, and there's still some people playing club level cricket today, but cricket will never again have any opportunity to become the national pastime in North America. And as a matter of fact, what happened 2 days after that ball game in Washington was equally as interesting. On August 30th, 1865, President Andrew Johnson welcomed the Atlantic and National clubs to the White House in the first documented case of the long-standing tradition of inviting successful sports teams to meet with the president. Well, Andrew Johnson was a complete tool, but he did initiate the tradition of meeting with championship baseball and other sporting teams at the White House. And that's it, boys and girls. Baseball prevails, and baseball took the giant leap forward. If we went back to what we just reviewed, if you go back to 1854, in 1854, there's games between Cincinnati and Pittsburgh in cricket. There's intercity games all across America. They've been playing international matches at a sport level. If you were just reading the sports pages, you would have thought that cricket was the game that was ascendant. However, if you went to the towns and villages around the nation, if you looked at the village green and saw the young boys playing baseball, and if you saw the people watching baseball in New York City, attending not just to participate, but to take the ferry over to Hoboken and to take the omnibus and to watch the game, you'd have seen the groundswell of populist sentiment that was behind the advancement of baseball. The introduction of the leagues and the introductions of the balls, especially in 1855 and bleeding into 1856, demonstrated that baseball was the game that was on the ascendancy. It was solidified in the camps of the Civil War, and it was crowned basically with the baseball games in Washington, D.C. in August of 1866 and the meeting with the president. Well, there we are, 1855, the year that changed everything for baseball. A cocktail would be a good way to go out. You know, there's in the theme, there's one called the Cooperstown. The Cooperstown is basically a perfect Manhattan, except you substitute gin for the whiskey. So it's 1.5 ounces of gin, 3/4 ounce of dry vermouth, 5 shakes, and I like lots of bitters, 5 shakes of orange bitters. Remember, I like my drinks more bitter than my ex-wife. So 5 shakes of bitters, and you can garnish it with mint, serve over ice. That's a really good drink for early April 1865 or early April 2025. So anyways, have a great night. Hey, Olivia, can you pipe us out with some 1920s jazz? And we'll see you down the road. Okay, bye.